Welcome everyone to the Voice of Terminus show. I'm joined by Josh. Say hello, Josh.
Hey guys.
Say hello, Lexa.
What's up, people?
And we finally have NickHotS with us. We've been trying to arrange a time and day to get him on. We finally got it. Welcome, man.
Hey, thanks for having me on here. Glad to be here.
Cool. So let's get into the interview and grind some questions with you. Tell us a bit about your gaming background.
Okay, well, first I'll just introduce myself. I'm Nick, also known as NickHotS in the community and the greater community, gaming community at large, at least in recent times. And I'm 28. I'm from Chicago, Illinois. And so let me talk a little bit about my gaming background. My gaming background started very, very early. I had an older brother. He's 8 years my elder, so that's a pretty good advantage. And so that got me into gaming at a pretty young age. I grew up on NES, SNES, and the like. But really early on, my mom wanted to have my brother teach me how to use the computer. She thought it would be a really good thing. And well, it ended up being more for gaming than anything else in my life. But so my first real PC games were some pretty heavy hitters. Doom 2, Warcraft 2. You know, these are really big games at the time, and I'm just like 6 or 7 years old, and you know, I'm gaming away. And yeah, I was mostly into those FPS and RTS games. I went on to play, you know, the series of Quake, StarCraft, Warcraft. And in terms of RPGs, I played the Final Fantasy series quite extensively. I also got into Diablo and later Diablo 2. But then everything really changed when my real-life friend introduced me to EverQuest. You know, everyone has that moment, like, wait, what? This game exists? So I was over at my friend's house, and he booted up his magician playing in Crushbone. In the throne room killing orcs, and I was just like blown away. Like, the graphics were amazing, but on top of it actually being an MMORPG, like all these real people around, and you know, like Diablo and Diablo 2 was like the ultimate RPG for me at the time. And then when I realized something like EverQuest existed, it just blew me away, because I was really into Diablo 2 at the time. But yeah, so I really appreciated EverQuest for this massive world I could enjoy. Sorry, I forgot to say, I joined in about August 2000 for EverQuest, so during the Runes of Kunark expansion. And EverQuest really turned gaming into kind of an obsession for me. It was already like a passion, a hobby, but EverQuest really made it into an obsession, and it kind of flipped that switch in my head. And I'm like, I have to get good at this game. I have to be the best. Like, it kind of turned me into like more of a power gamer, and later into
the first taste of Evercrack is always free.
Yeah. And mind you, I'm like, you know, 11, 12 years old at the time, so like this is shaping me. This is shaping who I am as a person. And so yeah, like I said, it, you know, later down the road when I got into different games, EverQuest was really that game that fueled my competitive spirit, I guess you would say. And so, you know, I could go on for days and days about, you know, EverQuest, but I'll, you know, keep going on. After EverQuest, I played PlanetSide, another game from SOE, which I would play that on and off until it's shut down. It actually just got shut down last year. And I just have to mention, there needs to be a spiritual successor for this game too, just like, you know, Pantheon is for EQ, because potential there is huge. And no, PlanetSide 2 doesn't count. But anyways, after that, after PlanetSide, I played World of Warcraft from beta until the end of Wrath of the Lich King. and I played in several notable guilds, including Nerfed during Classic, and I later played with Conquest of EverQuest fame for the Burning Crusade and Wrath of the Lich King, and Conquest was one of the, if you remember, was one of the best guilds in the world in the early EQ days. They got into that whole little trouble in Sleeper's Tomb and all that stuff, and they ended up getting disbanded and whatnot, all the disciplinary action. But Conquest ended up disbanding at the end of Wrath of the Lich King for good because of burnout, and WoW was just becoming too easy and not the raiding game that it used to be. If you remember, I don't know if any of you guys played World of Warcraft, but they had released Naxxramas again, and that's all we had for months and months and months, but it was just a very nerfed version of it, and it just for the competitive raiders, that was kind of like the turning point where it just kind of started going downhill, and it became more hand-holdy and whatnot.
Yep, that's when I left.
Yeah, exactly. And the numbers show it's true too. Wrath of the Lich King was like the peak of the game, and then after that it was like, go down.
Yeah.
But, still, it's still a good game in its own right, but just not the game for me, and not the game for I guess our generation of MMO players, where we're coming from like the EverQuest, and then we transition over. But yeah, and other than EverQuest and WoW, I had tested or tried out several other MMOs. Dark Age of Camelot, Warhammer Online, Star Wars: The Old Republic, several others. And while I had some good experiences here and there, and played for extended periods of time for others, and for others I would play for only a little bit of time, nothing really stuck out like EverQuest and World of Warcraft in the early days. So to continue, after World of Warcraft, I got heavily into competitive gaming. It was actually I was looking up some World of Warcraft arena videos one time. They had like the arena that came out, and they had like little tournaments for it, and that kind of caught my attention, because I was competitive and a power gamer in World of Warcraft, but I was never really into like the true competitive games, and like esports and whatnot. So I actually happened upon some StarCraft videos. So I really got into StarCraft for a couple of years there, about, I want to say 2008, 2009. And this was, StarCraft 2 was on the way, and I wanted to be ready, because that competitive spirit of mine. And so I played StarCraft 1 for a couple of years there, and then StarCraft 2 came out, and I played the heck out of that, and got pretty high up on the ladder, had a high ranking. So I dabbled in PlanetSide 2 a little bit, the MMO FPS, the alpha and beta late 2012, early 2003, but I couldn't stay with the game for too long. Like I said, it was no PlanetSide 1, and it was trying to be more of an evolution, but in many ways regressed in terms of mechanics. I guess a good comparison would be EverQuest to EverQuest 2, and look where we are now. We're still waiting on Pantheon to come out to be the true EverQuest 2, I guess.
Well, let's face it, de-evolution was kind of SOE's mantra.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate, because they had some really great ideas. EverQuest, PlanetSide 1, and we want to see these games come back. Please make these games.
Yeah.
We want to see more of that. But yeah, so to continue, around late 2013, early 2014, I started getting burned out with StarCraft 2 and dabbled in a lot of different games, like League of Legends and Hearthstone, but never really stuck with those. But playing a lot of Blizzard games, I was naturally interested in the upcoming release of Heroes of the Storm, which I thought was an interesting take on MOBAs. I wasn't really like a big MOBA guy. I'm more of just a competitor. So like, I'll see a game and I'll be like, well, I gotta go dominate the people in this game, or I just have that kind of like fighting spirit in me that just wants to go, beat people up. So I got the day one access to the Heroes of the Storm technical alpha At the time, I was taking classes at my local community college, but I was getting pretty obsessed with this game. I was playing it more than pretty much anyone out there. Like, I'm talking like tons and tons of games every day, you know, to try to become good at this game and whatnot. And that's when I started my channel NickHotS on Twitch, which took off fairly quickly as Heroes of the Storm became more and more popular during the alpha and the beta and whatnot. And I became one of the top streamers for the game, often reaching to the viewer counts of like several thousand people at a time. And I dropped out of school to just pursue the streaming full time. I played, I streamed, I played competitively in tournaments, and even casted some tournaments. And for my work, I was picked up by the professional gaming organization, Tempo Storm, as a broadcaster and content producer. But during my contract with Tempo Storm, I became fairly burnt out on Heroes of the Storm, which also coincided with me meeting my current girlfriend. So I threw in the towel and went back to school. And right now I'm just like a semester away from getting an associate's in computer programming. And so at the time I went back to school is when I began to get involved in the Pantheon community. And as you know, I did my stream summaries and my monthly roundup summaries and some things here and there for VR.
So let's quickly, before we carry on, go into that. Anybody's Nick, if you got a link for your last summary or whatever, can you throw that into Twitch chat? And you guys need to go and see this. The amount of work that's put in there. Tell us a bit about it. How much time did you invest in doing these summaries? Because you basically covered everything on Reddit, the community itself, tweets, what we are doing, what other community fan sites are doing, etc. And there's a lot of work put into it.
Yeah, so basically the stream came out for let's see, I think it was the very first stream. No. It was the third stream that VR did for Pantheon. And I was like, wow, there's a lot of information in this stream. This is like a 3-hour stream, you know. And it's all great. It's like really a lot of good information. But you know, to get all the info from it was kind of difficult. Like I wanted to get every little thing, like, you know, take little screenshots here and there and like get the ability clippings out and just get every little thing about it, so that people that don't have the time to watch the whole 3-hour stream can easily dissect, you know, you can get that information out. And another thing is I wanted people to have something to link to their friends. And you know, the friends would probably be that people that aren't going to sit through that stream, but you know, oh, I want to get my friend that's involved with Pantheon because, you know, I know this is going to be the best game ever. So I'm going to send this link to them, and then they're going to be able to, you know, see all the cool stuff. So that's how I initially thought about it, and I wanted to help out VR in that way because I feel like, you know, that gets more people interested in the game, and that's just one easy way I could help them out. So I started off with the streams, summarizing the streams, but then I would do the same thing for each month of news, because, you know, when you're following a game and it's not going to come out for, you know, maybe potentially several years, it can get a little bit tiresome at times. So I was like, well, if I just put all the info for the month in like this newsletter kind of thing, then it'll be, you know, a lot easier to follow this game, and it'll be a lot easier for your friends to follow it, and so on and so forth. So that's kind of the idea behind all the things I did. And I put a link in the chat to the knowledge base, which has the which is a good summary of the whole game itself, and then it has all the links to the write-ups I did.
Nice.
Very nice.
Yeah, I'm not too proud to admit that I use it when I've got really crazy months of work. I use it just in case there's something I missed.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, even when we do our Tavern Talk show every last Tuesday of the month, if there was a NickHotS summary there, I would basically pull that up to make sure that I've got all the stuff that we need to talk about. You know, and I can't wait for you to pick up the next one.
Yeah, you know, I think it was about a year or so, or maybe a year and a half. I can't remember exactly when, but me and a couple of friends were actually, trying our hand at what you guys do, and do a little show. And I think that's kind of how the idea sparked in my mind. Is you have to make the show notes, right? And that is kind of the format that the roundups eventually took. Like, I would just be like, well, I'm kind of good at organizing information and just gathering and organizing information. Well, I might as well just do that for just since I'm not doing the show anymore. We only did a couple shows, and then we're like, we can't do this. We're
too much work.
Voices are too good. We can't handle it. But
I'm just gonna go on the record saying that in terms of organization and preparation, I do nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Yeah, we ain't prepped at all.
No.
We are raw.
Yarn is prepped. I'm sure Josh went over the notes for the show. We basically sat down, started up Skype, and I'm like, oh, I should probably see what this is all about. Oh, we're doing the NickHotS show today. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So that's kind of how it started, I guess. I was just like, well, we don't have a show anymore, so I'll just release information.
Very good.
Yeah. So we know you come from EverQuest.
Yeah.
And you've got a very, very broad experience with MMOs, just a lot of games in general. What specifically got you interested about Pantheon?
Well, obviously, anything that Brad McQuaid does is kind of like, well, I have to follow what he's doing because it's Brad McQuaid. Like, in the EverQuest community and the MMO community in general, he's kind of like seen as this living legend. So like, you're like, oh man, he's working on a new game. Like, awesome. Like, I hope it comes out. I hope it's good. Like, you just always want to root for him because he's so passionate about gaming. He's so passionate about MMOs. And obviously, me having so many fond memories of EverQuest, and then what came after, like World of Warcraft, that would have never been a thing for me if EverQuest wasn't there, and then everything that linked off of that and came from that would have never been a thing. So EverQuest is like this really big moment in my life, and Pantheon is trying to recapture that, but make it better and make it modern, but not ruin the integrity of the game. Yeah. So obviously that's what got me into it. But the real moment that was like, holy crap, is when they did that stream, the kind of mic drop stream where EverQuest Next got canceled, and everyone's like, oh man, what are we going to do now? And then Pantheon, the stream, comes out, and you're like, oh my god, it's basically what we wanted anyways, and what EverQuest Next wasn't doing. So that, ever since then, I've been really, really following it.
Brilliant. So yeah, after what you've all seen in Pantheon now, up to date, and everything that they've released so far, what's the most exciting thing for you that you've seen in Pantheon?
Well, there's so many different things, but one thing I really, really like about Pantheon is the old school combat paradigm. Because nowadays you have this new school combat and MMOs of just like this nonstop action, AoE tanking, AoE killing, just trivial combat with no crowd control, and that is not appealing to me at all. In fact, going back to World of Warcraft, Wrath of the Lich King was the expansion that made AoE tanking like the thing you had to do, basically. It wasn't just like, oh, I have to, put a lot of threat into this mob, and then I have to put a lot of threat into this mob, and then we have to crowd control this and this. It was just like, well, I can just tank like 3 or 4 things now at once, and it's like no big deal. It requires no effort. So I really like the large emphasis on crowd control, debuffs, and each mob being formidable. I like to have to think and be cautious. And in addition to that, just being open world is really key to me. Because even in World of Warcraft, they had instances from the get-go, and I am no big fan of instances. I love the open world because the open world is where all the social stuff happens, and you gotta have it.
Yeah. And on top of that, I also just want to, on what you're saying is very interesting, because I think they've tried the crowd control thing in many games, but it becomes like a fad thing after a year or two, and suddenly it becomes more of a background thing than an actual pillar for groups itself.
Yes,
so let's hope that they build it into the game and make sure that after 2, 3, 4 years that it actually still stays relevant to the other pillars.
That's because of all the balancing they keep on doing with all the classes. Constantly, you have people complaining about their class being too weak, this and that. So they start balancing everything back and forth, and then that's why crowd control becomes irrelevant. That's why tanking becomes irrelevant. That's why healing becomes, less effective, because all the balancing, shifting back and forth, they destroy their game. Rather than doing it the way that VR are trying to approach their game. Make it fun and work on all this stuff later. Make sure it's all balanced out properly from the get-go, rather than having to go and tweak a few months down the line because, hey, all of a sudden this class seems to be broken.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep, exactly.
I'm just going to keep my mouth shut because no one wants to hear my opinions about people who cry about balancing issues.
Legs.
Hey, I'm trying to behave, damn it. So, what class and race are you most likely to pick, and why?
Okay, so I have kind of gotten to the point where, I used to play all kinds of different stuff, but then I was like, I'm the tank. Listen here, I'm the tank. That's it. So I'm probably gonna play an ogre warrior. I kind of like the idea of the Archai, but they're probably not. I also have OCD for min-maxing, power gamer, competitive gaming, blah, 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 blah. So, ogre warriors, you've seen a million of them before, everyone wants to be, or whatever race it, ends up being the best for tanking. I'll evaluate. If there's a couple good options, I would love that. If Archai had something that was maybe you're really good at generating threat, that would be really cool. They should, consider that, please, because that would be awesome VR.
I'm starting to feel like you're a more charismatic and hardworking version of me.
Well, thank you.
So I don't know if that's a good thing or not, though.
Maybe not as hardworking in the programming side, more hardworking in the gaming side. Programming side, I'm a little bit kind of slacking. So probably as someone you wouldn't enjoy working with at your programming job.
So, on that note, what is your least favorite race and least favorite class?
Okay, so my least favorite race would be the humans. I'm just not really because in EverQuest and all these games, they have these awesome, fantasy races, but Pantheon has taken it a step further. They're kind of reimagining, for example, the gnomes are just essences basically, and the halflings they just did a reveal on, which they're really changing it up. It's not that standard Tolkien hobbits. And then dwarves are cold arc, they're frozen dwarves. So I think with all these awesome races and then taking different takes on them, the humans don't really seem that impressive. Although I would have to say being human in a lot of these MMOs is really cool, because not because of the race itself, but because of the cities and Freeport and Kinos and WoW, Stormwind, these are great cities and starting areas, but the race itself, it's just not that interesting to me.
Yeah, it's basically what these humans create in these fantasy worlds just stands out. It's they are often seen as the least threatening race, something that people overlook, and humans, what are they? But what they bring out to the world in these games is just phenomenal, and that's what kind of sparks an interest towards them. Like you said, the humans are. I hope that VR kind of go deeper with them sometime down the road. Add maybe some different factions. Maybe you have some pure evil humans, or you have some really, really good humans, or even like bring in the barbarians and pack them into the human side as a faction of some sort.
I think VR will. I have a feeling VR will also do a familiar twist on the humans itself, just as they've done with the halflings, to actually spice it up a bit. I think they even realize that humans are boring after time.
Imagine.
Anyway, yeah.
I was gonna say about the factions part of it. That was like one of the intriguing things for me in EverQuest, was that different sections of Freeport, you know, and then having the sewers and this like underground area where all the necromancers have to hide out because they're not accepted by the other humans. Like, that's what made being human really interesting to me in EverQuest. And I think that was even in the case in Kino's as well. They had kind of like that cordoned off area for like the necromancers, or, you know, like the rogue guild, or that makes being human more interesting to me for sure. And I think we've seen a little bit of tidbits of that, maybe, you know, that kind of conspiratorial thing going on in the world of Terminus with Pantheon, the Black Daggers and whatnot. Yep. So I think they might be trying to go for that angle.
Well,
but making the humans themselves more interesting could also be.
We've already had people try to conspire to kill the king and everything. You know, Karos and everything going out there with the Black Daggers, and it would be really nice to see something happen, like, you know, a global event where it's the humans' fault. We are at fault for destroying, you know, parts of Terminus, or causing an all-out war, and then you know, definitely be good to see something like that come back again.
Yep.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Because we mess up real life anyway, don't we?
What's your least favorite class as well, Nick?
Oh, okay. So this, I kind of cheated on this one. My least favorite class is the Dire Lord, only because of the name. Only because I don't like the name Dire Lord. It just sounds like Beast Lords. It's not scary enough.
I can agree.
I would say it's probably going to be one of my favorite classes, actually, because I love the Shadow Knight EQ.
Yeah.
It's just it's one of my favorite classes. It's a tank, plus it's like this menacing evil guy with all this cool utility. Like, it's such an awesome class, but I can't go with the name. Just can't go with the name.
They should have kept Dreadlord.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one.
Yeah, exactly. If you had to choose between the two, which one would you pick and why?
Well, obviously, definitely the Dire Lord. Just like I said, that was like one of my favorite classes, the Shadow Knight. So
yeah,
definitely would have to go with the Dire Lord.
Just on a side note, Lex, they could end up changing it, mate.
Yeah,
I mean, they went from Crusader to Paladin, so there's no reason why they couldn't go from Dire Lord to Dreadlord.
That's very true. I mean, I think it was like Dreadlord or Dread Knight or something like that on the Kickstarter.
It just sounds so scary. It just sounds
like, it sounds like he's badass.
Yep, you don't want to mess with him.
Dire Lord just sounds like he's got rabies.
Yeah.
So, what mechanics are you mostly?
I'm definitely. I really like the premise of bringing the environment back into the game. The idea of climate and atmosphere systems. The climates create a system of progression that is really immersive. Like, you know, you had to get your resist gear and whatnot in EverQuest, and that's all fine and dandy, but it's like, let's make it more immersive. Let's make it more, you know, there's a lot of these cool survival games out there nowadays, so let's try to, you know, take a cue from them maybe and make it more interesting and immersive and whatnot. And also the atmospheres have a really interesting impact on the game. I feel like there's a lot of room for creativity there with like level and encounter design that can really put some kind of twist on it, I guess you would say. So I'm really looking forward to that. Those mechanics, I would definitely.
I also think that the atmosphere is a visual thing as well, and I think a lot of people will just love going into new areas, going through like fogs,
Let's see what this can do.
Yeah, exactly, and the beauty of the areas. So the layering.
Yeah, we're gonna have to keep Lex on a leash though. You know what he's gonna be. What's this? Oh, what does that one do? Oh, let's have a look over here.
I
Get
don't know
back!
what that is, but I'm gonna lick it.
Yeah.
You know, you bring up a good point, because a large part of these games is definitely immersion. And I know people will say, oh, the graphics don't matter. It's all about the gameplay. But once you have the gameplay down, you also want the graphics too, because that really increases the level of immersion. And I think they're doing great things with Unity engine. That lighting update that they just pushed out, that just changed everything. That then brought the game up to the 2017 feeling standards. Like, it just looks gorgeous now, and I'm really, really excited to see, these environments that they create. I'm sure they're gonna be awesome.
Great. Yeah, exactly. So if you could play Pantheon right now, what and where would you go and do?
I definitely want to check out Amber Fate. That's been like the one area in the game that's really stuck out to me for a number of different reasons. Not only does it just look really cool, no pun intended, it also has the climbing aspect to it, the verticality. It just looks really interesting, and yeah, I just think it's really awesome. But I mean, to actually get there, it's gonna take a lot of time. I gotta do the quest to get through that Union of Shadows. I gotta get the key for Amber Fate itself. So I'll probably just focus on a lot of. If I could play, I would probably just focus on a lot of progression for my character. Assuming this is like a full release. If it's a testing release, I would just be like, I gotta submit all the bugs. I'm one of those guys that are just. I'm gonna grind out and figure out every bug there is, because I don't know. I'm just weird like that.
Good man, good man. So, share with us an experience from a past MMO that was, really stand out or funny.
So there are so many of these, and some of them I'm not too proud of, so I should probably keep under wraps. But
we'd like to hear those.
you guys can hear those off the stream. For the I had to I picked a good one though. So this is one of my funny failure moments, and it's also kind of a kid story, because I was a kid at the time. So back in the day, when I was like 12 years old or so, I used to lead pickup Lord Nagathon raids on EverQuest. And I was pretty good. I was pretty darn good at it for like a 12-year-old. I had amassed a record of 4-0 for successful raids. So one night I tried to organize a Lady Vox raid. You can see where this is going.
Yep.
First of all, Lady Vox is just, Lady Vox.
Next level.
But it was taking a really long time to get things situated with buffing and everything. And now, keeping in mind, I was like 12 at the time, and it was a school night. So my mom was getting really mad at me, yelling at me, get off the computer, you gotta go to bed, it's a school night, what are you doing? And this was kind of like my Breaking Bad moment, where I put my foot down and I was like, no, I'm not getting off. And this made her even more mad, which eventually led to my dad waking up. And when you're 12 years old, your dad is mad, and he has to get out of bed to yell at you. That's like, oh crap.
End of days.
This is scary. So he woke up to see what the commotion's all about. And he's like, you got to get off. He's yelling at me. And I was like, all right, I have to hold my ground here. I tried to plead my case to him. I just exclaimed, I was like, but there's 50 real other people in real life in this game, like, that are depending on me. I've been working at this all night. You don't understand. And that fell on deaf ears. He's like, get out, get off. And so my mom finally came back and changed her tune and came to my defense and was like, all right, just let him finish, And my dad just stood there, and we ended up wiping to horribly to Vox. And I ended up falling into the bear trap and whatnot and dying. And then knowing that CR would take a really long time, I was like, all right, I didn't want to enrage my parents anymore. I was like, all right, I got to log off and abandon the raid. Sorry, guys. That's my story.
Nice.
Brilliant.
Yeah, that's a good one.
that is a good one.
That's a good one.
And the funny thing is, I had the opposite experience with those two particular dragons. I had a very easy time with Vox, but Nagy was just my Achilles heel. No matter what was going on, something went wrong.
Yeah.
You know? So, if you could pick 3 things to implement into Pantheon, what would they be and why?
Okay, so I'm kind of this game design, like, armchair game designer, I guess the term is. I still think I have some legitimate ideas, but one thing I want to implement is a little bit long, but I thought of this idea only recently. It's called I call it the adventure system, and this idea comes from like those epics, like Lord of the Rings. Like, oh man, they're going on this crazy adventure, and they're going across all these different areas and different places. So basically, and then it kind of coincides with another problem in the old school MMOs. It's like, well, travel is really fun at the start, and it's very, like this huge journey at first, but as time and experience goes on, it becomes more of a tedious element of the gameplay. It's like, oh, I have to press numlock or whatever my auto run hockey is, and just I'll go across North Carolina and then go AFK for 10 minutes and get a bowl of cereal or something. But with the adventure system, it would allow for players to kind of set off on adventures from city to city. This isn't a really good comparison, but they have a very primitive thing in EverQuest. It's just like one of those hail quests where you get the mail and you deliver it to another city. It would kind of be like this, but a lot more in depth. And the idea here is just to give an option to turn travel into meaningful and fun content. There could be different adventures for different level ranges. It could show like an estimated completion time. So for people that don't have a lot of time in a night, they can just, I'll do this little adventure, and I'll get a meaningful amount of progress. Maybe you would get some bonuses, like maybe monsters killed during the adventure would give bonus experience or faction gains. So there's more to it that I really haven't been able to put into words yet. But essentially, like I said, the idea comes from epics like Lord of the Rings, where they would really be on an adventure, spans multiple large areas. And despite the fact that this can happen organically in games like EverQuest, oftentimes people miss out on it. And that's the problem, I think. And I think that's one of the emergent behaviors that should be taken by the developers and embraced, and have mechanics built for it, so people do actually get to do the good thing that we used to do more emergently back in the day. A lot of times the content in MMOs are experienced kind of sitting in one area, like setting a camp, or running, or later on like running through a linear dungeon, like running an instance. We need to get people out in the world more, feeling encouraged to travel from place to place, not have it be this tedious thing.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it is when you're traveling, like say from one zone to another, everyone gets set in their ways. You take the same route. I know I do. Especially, I still play EverQuest, so I've got like 17 years of I always go the same route to get to where I want to go. Giving people a reason to take different routes to see more parts of the zone, it could potentially give them these moments of head turning where they're like, oh wait, what's that? Which helps extend basically the interest or the excitement of the game. Yeah. So I like the idea.
Thank you.
Nice.
So you said 3 things, right?
Yep.
Yeah. 3.
Okay, so this is my number 2. And this is talking about raid content. And I know the game is trying to focus more on the group content, which I do approve of that. I actually, in my current life situation, I don't think I would be too much of a hardcore raider at the current moment. But in terms of raid content, I really enjoyed zones more like Plane of Fear and Plane of Hate, where you're kind of getting zerged by like a ton of like lower to medium level HP trash that have like unique abilities and like immunities and such, so that back then like trash was kind of more skillful in a sense. Like eventually they added like, oh, there's like these two giants and they both have like 500,000 HP. Tank one, tank the other, kill one. You know, it became more of like trash became tank and spank. Trash should be a lot more unpredictable and random, and like have, you know, there should be tanks having to like pick up mobs and healers having to spot heal, and you know, enchanters or crowd control classes having to, you know, crowd control the correct mobs. And you have to you should have to kill like these mobs in the right order, otherwise you're in trouble. So I think that they need to make that kind of experience, like these living, breathing zones, like you would see in Plane of Fear and Plane of Hate. They need to bring that back, because that was like some of my earliest moments of raiding, but that was also some of the most exciting times, because there was excitement to it, there was danger to it, and I really liked that part of it. And kind of as a aside here, I would also just like to see more raid content in general, even if it's more generic stuff. Like, you know, the Kunark dragons were, I think, a good addition, because you had like just raid content out in the world, and you know how they in games like EverQuest they try to mix like high level content and low level content. I think there's so much low level content areas where they can just plop in, you know, raid content basically. And that makes, you know, it's not just like a griffin you have, or a giant. You actually just have like a raid boss, you know, roaming somewhere.
Oh yeah.
Well, it'll be dynamic mobs basically.
Yeah,
they're moving from zone to zone, depending on the situation.
Oh,
and I'm also pretty sure that every single person that's played EverQuest remembers that moment when they went to the Dreadlands and they said, Gorner has slain you, or whatever, and you're just like, what?
Yeah, exactly. Going back to what you were just saying about the traveling zone to zone, that was actually, you know, the sleeper script had the sleeper move from zone to zone. So maybe if they use that same kind of idea, but for just, you know, general raid content, that'd be kind of cool to have a dragon show up in a different zone, because in modern day EverQuest you have like everyone's a pro now. Everybody is a pro. Oh, we got 200 characters camped at Veneral Sathir, so when he spawns, he instantly dies, and like, where's the fun in that? That is just
stupid. Yeah,
it's stupid. I mean, and this is me coming from like one of the more competitive people out there. Like, it kills the fun. They need to do something about it. But yeah, that's my thing on raiding. They need to look at Agnar, look at Project 1999, and think about how to do raiding. It can't stay the same.
Yeah.
No, it can't. Coming from a guy that used to have a guild of alt magicians, so that we could call of hero our raid wherever we needed to be. I'm not saying I'm gonna do that in Pantheon, because that's in my past, but I don't want that to be an option, because and it's not necessarily against me, because I don't know how hardcore I'm gonna go into the raiding. I don't have the time anymore. But I don't want other people who could potentially experience that content to have to deal with that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Maybe those atmospheres might have some blockage where you can't, you know, use Call of the Hero or this or that, or have the Wizard Call or the Necromancer or the Druid and so forth. Maybe those kind of things could be put into play as well, so that you have to stumble upon, go and see if the raid mob is up in person.
True.
Yep.
Very true.
Definitely. So my number 3 is a really, really good team PvP server. One that is a compromise of Talon and Valen and Sol and Zek servers, that takes all the good parts of it and gets rid of all the bad parts. There were a lot of flaws with the team servers, especially Talon and Valen Zek, which were arguably just really great and awesome experiences. You'd have these flow zones like East Commonlands, where you'd have like evil and good clashing and the shorties clashing, but they made it soft-coded teams, so everyone just cross-teamed and then made one Uber guild, and then it became a PvE server essentially. So that kind of ruins it. Sol and Zach more had the right idea, but there were some balancing issues on there and such. So evil ended up dominating really, really hard. So I would really want to see them take make a good PvP, team PvP server, and take the old servers as inspiration, but also come up with some new ideas as well.
Yeah, exactly. So, what is your number one thing from the game tenants that stands out in your mind, and why?
Well, I'm going to start sounding like a broken record because my tenet is an assertion that player versus environment should involve more than NPCs. Engage the world. So as I said before, I'm very excited for the climate and atmosphere systems. And these systems, in conjunction with NPCs, will make Pantheon a really great experience, I think.
Very cool.
I'm having some connection issues at the moment, guys.
Yeah, I just noticed the stream went buffering.
Yeah.
But it's back.
Yeah, it seems to be back. It hasn't disconnected, so that's a good thing. That's why I was waiting to see if it disconnects or not, so that we have a good portion to cut it back into place. Let's carry on. So, with that, what's your number one thing from the Pantheon difference that you want to see the most?
So, again, it's the atmosphere and climate system. But you know what? One additional thing I can say is I think the tie-in to the colored mana system, that's going to be a really interesting way of going about things. So I definitely want to see where VR goes with that. We haven't really heard about that for a long time.
No.
But I think they're, when you're developing these MMOs, you really got to build zones, right?
Yep.
And they're going to flesh out, I would say they're probably going to flesh out the classes more down the road. So I think that's kind of like just a high level idea right now, and they really haven't figured out the intricacies of that. But I'm really looking forward to that point when they do figure it out.
Cool.
And there's also a lot of trial and error to some things. You got to try the idea, see if it works. If you like it, that still might mean you have to do additional tweaking, which could be 50, 100 hours. But if you don't like it, you scrap it, and then you got to spend a whole truckload of hours to figure out something to take its place.
So a quick side question from chat. Will NickHotS stream Pantheon?
Yeah, I actually reached out for the streamer program, and I definitely think I'm going to give it a shot. So, yeah, you can expect me to stream the game. I don't know where I'll be at in life. Is this going to be like this 24-hour marathon stream where I'm suddenly like trying to get world first something, or am I just going to be more casual? Like, that's still up in the air, but I am going to give it a shot. Like I said, I reached out to VR for the streaming program, so I'm definitely looking forward to that. Cool.
So, if you could spend a single day or a day with a single person at VR, who would it be and why?
Well, it'd have to be the man himself, Brad McQuaid. I mean, like I said, in the MMO community, in the EverQuest community, he's kind of like this living legend, right? And the first thing I would do would be to thank him, for all the great experiences and friends that would not be involved in my life if it weren't for him creating EverQuest. It's just crazy how different my life has been because of that game. And some of my best friends are from EverQuest, and I really would just like to thank him for that. And then the second reason would be to just bounce different game design ideas off of him. He's definitely like that theorycraft type and design enthusiast, where his brain is always ticking about these new ideas or how to recreate old ones. And I'm a similar breed to that. So it'd be great to chat with him and talk about that kind of stuff.
Cool. So, are you main for game, or are you an alcoholic?
Oh man, when I first started EverQuest, yeah, all of the above. No, so when I first started playing EverQuest, when I was, just a little kid, I was an altaholic. I could not set on any character for the longest time. I wouldn't, even when I did get my main, I would neglect him a lot because I would be an altaholic. But that didn't last too long. And once I got that competitive power gaming kind of mentality, that's when I became just straight, main character.
Very nice. So what is your guild preference?
Again, it really depends where I am in life when Pantheon comes out. I really enjoyed my times as a hardcore raider, but I'm starting to get to that age where it's more challenging to make the commitment to do that. I may just do more of the casual professional type of deal, either joining a guild like that with a group of friends or making our own.
Very, very nice. And what other interests outside of gaming do you have? We've heard about your girlfriend.
Oh yeah, my girlfriend is great. She is the best. Other than her, I really enjoy music. Actually, for over 10 years, I used to play the violin, and actually I played the viola for about a few years. And so, yeah, that's what I almost went to college for, actually. But gaming was just my call at the same time. So, yeah, but music is always a passion for me. Concerts are a fun thing. I also, obviously, everyone loves food. So trying out new restaurants and eating all kinds of good and interesting different foods. Other than that, I follow and watch the NBA. That's something I do, and a little bit of esports, only a little bit. I like watching StarCraft 1 games for esports, but that's pretty much it.
Very cool.
So, in my earlier comparison between us, now I have to add he's more cultured than I am.
Lex, I think that's easy for anyone, though, isn't it?
Take a 4-year-old from down the street; they're more cultured than I am.
So, do you have a ritual for longer gaming sessions, and what are they?
Yeah, it's drink a lot of caffeine, and when that doesn't work, or I, get tired anyways, I just usually complain about how tired I am on voice chat, and then play through the pain. That's pretty much what it comes down to. Unless my friends give up first, and then I'm like, oh yes, I'm off the hook. I'm going to sleep right now. Like, this sounded like a good idea like 36 hours ago, but I gotta call it quits. I gotta get a nap in.
So before the final question,
I was gonna get to that too.
What team do you support in the NBA?
Well, I'm from Chicago, so Chicago Bulls, but we're tanking right now. So, yeah, it's not a good look. We got a good rookie though. So it's interesting to watch him. It's fun to see him develop, but I'm just a fan of the game, honestly. I like seeing, the elite teams go at it, and I also like seeing the young up and comers. The Lakers and the Sixers are fun to watch right now just because they're new and got all these big name rookie, sophomore players and whatnot. But and it's fun just to watch the high level play between the Warriors, Cavaliers. Celtics are looking really good right now too. So yeah, just kind of more of a fan of the game and watching my favorite teams and also good matchups.
Nice.
Cool.
Go sports! So it's the $1 million question time. I believe I am in the lead by 1. Yes. So Nick,
that's no influence though,
No, the 20 I slipped him is. I mean, so who, in your opinion, is the VOT host with the most?
Well, you might be in a close second, but I have to give it to Yarnilla because he constantly reaches. You don't understand how many times I was like, I'm busy, man. I can't do it. Like, and he just kept reaching out to me, and he never, was like miffed by me being like, I can't do it now. Like, so, I was super busy and kind of reluctant. So, I just have to thank him, and he's the host with the most for getting me on here and actually doing that, because I am actually having a really great time. I'm kind of sad we're getting towards the end.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna direct this to Chet. Can you believe this guy?
I know.
I'm kidding.
It's all good. It's all fun. So
we're eventually we're gonna actually have to think of something that, when release comes, whoever is in the lead wins something, or the loser has to do something.
Oh yeah, lemon shots.
Bring it on.
So your final words for VR or the community itself?
Well, to the community itself, I'll start by saying thank you so much for all the support and kind words about me and all my Pantheon content that I've been doing. It's for you guys. It's for VR. It's for the game, just to make sure everyone knows what's going on with the game and to get the word out there about this game, because this is the game we've all been waiting for. Like, it's finally coming out. We're very excited about this game, and we just want it to succeed, and that's what I did all of this for. And so yeah, that's thank you to the community, thank you to you guys. And then you said final words to VR. I would just offer a word of advice. I'd be like I said before, investigate the situation going on Agnar and Project 1999. There's a lot of people playing on there, but there's still a lot of things. There's a lot of issues with modern EQ that need to be looked at, and I think these problems can be remedied in a creative and fun way that feels like a natural evolution to these classically spirited MMOs. But then I would also have to say thank you to VR for making Pantheon, because, like I said, it's the game we've all been waiting for probably over a decade now, and we're all excited to see it come to fruition.
Oh, very nice.
Very nice.
Words right out of my mouth.
For everybody out there who might have missed it, next Tuesday, 1 PM Pacific time, VR will be streaming with Co-Carnage and showing off the making of a city. They'll be showing off Throne Fast, how it's designed and everything. So look forward to that. And on Thursday, we will be joined by Martini. He will be joining us for another player Q&A. So look forward to that as well. And we will be streaming on Tuesday right after VR. We predict around 5 PM Eastern. We'll have to see how long VR basically stream, and then we will basically shortly after that we will be going live, talk about what we just saw and give you guys some further in-depth information. Yeah. So with that, guys, Nick, thanks for joining us. We had a blast.
Thank you.
Great fun, Nick. Thank you.
If you ever have any free time and you want to just jump on and chit chat with us on some of the topics that we do, feel free to reach out and let us know, and we'll arrange something.
The same. My door's always open.
Keep up the good work.
Yep, definitely.
You guys too.
So with that, guys, we'll see you all the latest Tuesday. Take care.